Hello, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. While we're waiting for a few more people to join, put in the chat where in the world you're joining from. Today, I'm in Greece. I'm in Athens. Where are you, Raimee? We haven't even discussed that backstage.
Yeah, I'm in LA. I'm based in Los Angeles for the most part, and I'm just at home right now.
Nice. Yeah, I saw your kitty earlier. Maybe your kitty
Yes,
will make another appearance.
she might. So if anyone sees the cat tail, that's you know, that's what that is.
Dead giveaway that you're at
Yeah.
home. Okay,
Yes.
we've got some people from Texas. Oh my goodness, Caitlin. Curious if you saw the eclipse. I know that was just through there the other day. Toronto, also on the path. UK. If you're just joining, let us know where in the chat you're joining from. I'm also going to put up a poll because today is going to be about seeing more of the world for less money. So we were wondering what destination is still on your bucket list? A little bit opposite of where you are today. Where do you wish you were? Where is the destination you still want to go to? Put those in. No wrong answer. And then also let us know where in the chat you are, where in the world you're joining from in the chat.
Oh, I see Michigan.
Michigan.
I'm from Michigan. Yeah.
It's fun. SF, Denver. Oh, Caitlin is also from Michigan.
Oh,
Nice.
let's go, Midwest.
New Jersey. Okay, if you are just joining, let us know in the chat where you're tuning in from, but also where do you wish you were? We have a poll going. What destination is still on your bucket list? So we got a few top destinations there. After I do my little intro, I will reveal the results, and maybe we'll all be heading there sooner than later once we learn all of this great advice from Raimee. What do you think?
Yes. My presentation will hopefully take you step by step through any of these places to plan any of them.
Amazing. Okay, let's do that. So I'm going to just get started because I'm already intrigued with what that path looks like for us. So thank you everyone for being here. My name's Sam. I have the pleasure of getting to host and moderate this webinar series. We've been running this webinar series now for over a year. I've had the pleasure of meeting such incredible content creators and thought leaders in the travel industry and the content creation space. And I've just learned so much. All of these have been recorded and are up on our YouTube channel. So if you're new here, definitely check those out. When I'm not moderating this webinar series, I host my own podcast and community called The Freedom Lifestyle. And it's all about living and working more flexibly and on your own terms, which I'm guessing some people here will resonate with that. And today our speaker is Raimee. Raimee, welcome. How are we feeling?
Hey, feeling good. I'm excited to share all my tips and crazy Virgo planning process with everyone. So,
When's your
feeling good.
birthday? I'm also Virgo.
September 13th.
September 21st. I get
Let's go.
this. Let's
Yep.
go. I'm
Yeah.
curious. Maybe there's some other Virgos in here. Put in the chat. But Raimee has traveled to over 40 countries by herself. Is that right? All solo?
Um, a majority of them, yes, I have been to solo. I don't know if all of them, but a lot of them I've been to solo, and a lot of times I'll go back and bring friends or family, but I've done all sorts of travel.
Okay, amazing. And now you share smart and realistic travel tips with your dedicated community of over 400,000 followers, which is amazing. And you've really become a go-to source for simple, insightful, and unconventional travel advice. You mentioned you're based in California, but you're still traveling the world fairly often. Is that true?
Yes, I'm headed to Ireland in like a week and a half, and then I've got a lot of other travel plans this year. This year is packed, so I'm very excited. I mean, obviously during the pandemic, I didn't get to travel as much, so now I'm playing catch up, as I'm sure we all are. There's like a phrase called revenge travel, and I feel very much like I'm doing that.
Oh, wow. I haven't heard that term before, but I think that is accurate.
Mhm.
The flights are full. I'll say that every time I'm on a plane, the airplanes
Always.
are full, the airports are full. So I feel that is accurate.
Hmm.
We are going to do a Q&A at the end. And so as Raimee's going through her presentation, if anything is unclear, you want her to go deeper on something, or there was something missed that you want to ask her about, definitely use the Q&A box. And at the very end, I'll come back on, we'll do a bit of a fireside chat, and we'll make sure you leave feeling like you totally know what your path forward is to travel the world even more for less. If you are new here, this webinar series is powered by SafetyWing. And SafetyWing is building a global social safety net for remote workers and nomads. I'm guessing some of you on this call would identify of one of those two categories. And so SafetyWing is very much creating a suite of products with all of us in mind, and has a mission of becoming your home country on the internet. SafetyWing's story started with Nomad Insurance, which continues to be their fastest growing product, over 100,000 customers worldwide, a network of thousands of ambassadors just like Raimee. And perhaps today you'll join that ambassador community, which we'll tell you a little bit more about later on. But we work with incredible content creators, freelancers, influencers, travel bloggers, remote job specialists, anybody who is on this journey of helping people travel the world more freely, and really support our mission of removing any type of barriers that would prevent equal opportunities and freedom for anyone in the world. So that's a little bit about SafetyWing, a little bit about Raimee, and that's all I have to say. Are you ready to take things over, Raimee?
Totally, let's do it. I can share my screen and get into our presentation and hopefully, yeah, help you guys travel more for less and also travel smarter, because that's what I'm all about. I feel like over the past 10 years, I've found little tips and hacks to just make the whole process of actually planning a trip less overwhelming, because I hear that all the time, like, well, I want to travel more, but where do I start? What do I do first? Where do I go to do this? And so I've kind of broken this down into a 5-step process that I'm going to go through. And as Sam mentioned, if you have any questions at the end, because I don't want to drone on, but if you want any clarifying questions, definitely save those for the end and we'll talk through them as well.
Amazing. And you're in good community. I just looked at the chat, Raimee, and we've got lots of other Virgos, lots of other September babies. We've got
Hey.
people who know their sign. And I just put up the results from the poll. So, we can see where people want to head. Definitely Japan is in the lead there.
Okay, cool. Wait, is my thing on the first page still?
Yep. Looks good.
I
It's
don't
a
know why.
little bit zoomed in. Maybe you can press that bottom right arrow. Yeah, try that.
Oh, did that work? Is it too zoomed in?
No, that looks good.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll let you know
I
if there's any problems, but so far so good.
Okay, cool. I'll do another brief intro just about me. I'm
Perfect.
Raimee, 10 years of solo travel experience. I've also worked for really big travel bloggers like Nomadic Matt, The Blonde Abroad, Hopscotch the Globe. So all of my travel planning experience comes from my own trips, but also helping these major travel bloggers put together their content and itineraries and all of that fun stuff. And then, of course, I did have to include that I am a Virgo sun, Capricorn moon, and Virgo rising. If anyone knows astrology, you know that means I am a very efficient and organized person. And I can't really control anything other than that because it's all in my chart. So there we go. That's why I'm good at this and why I'm ready to share it with you guys today. Um, okay, it keeps going backwards. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to talk through my 5-step trip planning process. Here's what we're going to talk about. My process for always finding a cheap flight, non-overwhelming itinerary planning process, because this is the one that gets me, because there's always so much I want to do on a trip, and it can feel very overwhelming to make sure you put everything in an itinerary. But we also want to leave wiggle room for being spontaneous, because to me, that's what travel is all about. So I've found a great way to do this and accomplish what you want to accomplish on your trip without feeling overwhelmed. And then we'll go over some of my cheap accommodation tips and tricks, because there's a lot of things that I find over the years to save money on accommodation, because next to flights, that's usually the biggest expense. So we'll talk through that. Then how do we find and book the best transportation to and from point A and point B when you're in a place? And then we'll get into my airport tips, hacks, and some flight anxiety tips for anyone like me who also struggles with a little bit of travel anxiety. And then we'll do the Q&A. So let's get into finding cheap flights. This is my absolute favorite thing. So my step one for this is always to start with Google Flights. And I'm a huge proponent of chasing the deal, not the destination. And the way that I do this is putting in my home airport, for example, Chicago here. And then Google has a thing where you can search anywhere and it'll show you a map view, show you the flight prices. And I've chosen where I'm going based on the flight price before. And I love doing this. I know that doesn't work out every time because we all have to travel to specific events or there are certain trips we want to take, but this can be a good place to start if you just want to travel more. And one of the things I love to point out and show people is the price graph feature on Google Flights. If you just scroll down a bit after selecting your destination, you can see, as you see in this graph right here, which dates are going to be the cheapest to fly. So I wanted to do a 7-day trip to Spain. I clicked into the price graph and I can see, okay, April 29th through May 6th, that's going to be the cheapest time to travel. Also, that's a great time of year to go to Spain because it's shoulder season, it's spring, it's before the summer season begins. So I love doing this when I'm planning my whole year of travel and where I might want to go. This is how I decide when I want to book my vacation time. Because I do have a full-time job, probably like many of you guys. So I also can't travel whenever I want. I do have to plan it out, and this helps me do that. Another tip I wanted to mention is to find cheap flights, especially for the ones where you do have to travel to a specific destination. I always book the main cabin fare, not the basic economy fare. Even though the basic economy fare is going to be cheaper, main cabin gives you so much more flexibility so that when step 5, you turn on these price alerts, if that price drops, many airlines will let you cancel, get an e-credit for your original flight, and then rebook at the cheaper flight price. So you're saving money. You can use that e-credit on future flights, and you got the cheapest flight because you were tracking the whole time. So I do that anytime I need to travel for a wedding or a specific vacation. I'm a huge proponent of there is no best day to book a flight. I know there's myths like Tuesday at midnight. The cheapest time to book a flight is when you see a price that works for you. I always book it. I turn on the track prices and then I monitor it. I'll get an alert if it drops and I cancel and rebook if it drops. So that's something I like to say for those flights that we can't be super flexible with. I also wanted to mention my holy grail for cheap flights. Two of the newsletters that I subscribe to, both of them have free versions where they will send you daily flight deals all over the world. You can set your home airport and they will send you, from Chicago to Spain under $400 right now. This is how I've found such cheap flights all over the world, both through Thrifty Traveler and Going Flights. Going also just launched an app and it's fantastic. So highly recommend checking that out. Like I said, there's free versions of both. And then they also have premium versions where they'll send you even more deals and deals on points and miles flights. So they'll send you when there's a low point deal for flights. I know I mentioned Google Flights, but these are also some of the other flight websites that I use and check often because I'm always comparing. That's the thing. I'll sit down, I'll look for the flight, I'll compare all of the options, and then I just book it because the longer you wait, the more it's going to go up. It's just the way it is. There's, a little bit of a science to win, but what I find is for international flights, 7 to 10 months out is a great time to book. And then for domestic flights, anywhere between 1 to 4 months is a good time to book. So don't overthink it. Use these websites and sign up for these newsletters. They're fantastic. Then, of course, for my United States-based people, this will be a little bit more relevant. I know that credit card points and miles stuff isn't as relevant in other countries because America just does this differently, but I did want to highlight a few things about booking with points because, of course, that's a huge aspect of saving on flights. I've taken many free flights. I've flown in business class and first class for, the taxes and fees that you have to pay, which is like $100, using my points and miles. So I did want to touch on some of the things people don't mention when it comes to points and miles, though, because I feel like people will make this sound easier than it actually is. And one of the things to know, especially if you want to fly in premium cabins like business class or first class, is that flexibility is truly the key to finding those deals. Like I mentioned, those newsletters might send you opportunities to fly for really a small amount of points, but they're going to be on very, very specific dates. So you do have to be very flexible when it comes to booking with points and miles. But you can find great deals 10 to 12 months in advance. For example, I'm flying to Tahiti in September of this year. And I booked that flight with points so that I could fly business class in September of last year, because that's when I found a good deal for about 80,000 points, which is really great for that route. Now, if I were to try to book that route now, it's over 300,000 points, which is just, I would never use that many points for that. But the key is to book 10 to 12 months in advance if you want to find great points and miles deals. Or, and this one is a little crazy for any risk takers out there, 3 to 7 days before the flight departs, most airlines will release more business class, first class seats because they're trying to fill them up. And they're usually not full even a week before the plane departs. Many times I have waited until 3 days before departure to book a fare with points. I've never not been able to find one to this day. So I did want to highlight that if you have your trip planned and you are dead set on flying business class, this could be an option for you if you're willing to wait. And the worst case scenario, I always say, is that you just use your points to fly economy, because there will always be one or two economy seats available, usually even more than that. But this is a little hack if you are feeling spontaneous and want to try to get business class. A couple days before the flight takes off, you will find availability. Um, I also wanted to mention considering positioning flights. This is for points and miles and also just for flying in general. A lot of the times, and I'm sure you guys know, if you fly out from a larger airport, you'll be able to find better flight prices. So I mentioned I'm from Michigan. I used to have my home airport was Detroit, Michigan, which did not have a lot of international availability. There's definitely some, but the prices were not great. So what I would do is I would drive across the border to Windsor, Canada, take a small propeller plane from Windsor to Toronto for a couple $100, and then I would fly out of Toronto to Europe, to Asia, and it was always much cheaper to fly out of Toronto. So think about where that positioning airport could be for you based on your region. In the Midwest, I'd say try to go to Chicago, Toronto, New York. You'll always find better prices there. If you're in the South, Texas has a lot of great cheap flights, California, etc. So always consider those airports, and you'll be able to get a cheap flight from your airport to that airport, and it makes the whole thing a lot more affordable. And same thing goes with finding points and miles deals. And then one last thing on that, a lot of people book their flights with points through the travel portal. I just want to advise against that for the most part, but there are some times where that works. A lot of people say never book through the travel portal. That's not always true. Just make sure that you add in a step where you're checking the travel portal and the airline's website, because oftentimes the airline's website and their mileage program will have better deals. So just make sure to check both. Then you can transfer your points to the airline partner and book through them if it is cheaper. Cool. Now let's get into itinerary planning process. So this is the way that I go through my itinerary planning process for every single trip. First, I figure out the flight, I book the flight. Next, I figure out where do I want to go. And this is the overwhelming part, right? Because I especially when I'm traveling somewhere so far away, like Japan, for example. There is so much in that country I want to see. But my first point and first place I'm going to start is one of my three favorite travel blogs because I know they have the same taste as me. I know that they're going to have really detailed itineraries, and these are the ones I go to, but this could be different for you. If you know that there's a blogger or a content creator that you really relate to, I recommend choosing 2 to 3 of them and stopping at that point because you can get into information overload if you're just Googling around and searching on TikTok and trying to find all of the things. I really just stick to my 2 to 3 known people that I know have the same taste as me. After that, I'll start plotting out points on my Google map of saved locations. So on your Google Maps app, you can save locations, restaurants, sites, all of these things, and create little pins on your map. So as I'm going through and researching on the blogs that I like, I'm slowly just plotting things onto my Google map and saving it on a specific map there. And if you need a tutorial of that, let's talk after and I can show you how to do that really quickly. I have a video on my social media about how to do this. Um, but the reason this is helpful is because this is really the key for me to have a full set of things and places I want to see and restaurants I might want to go to without having them planned out day by day, like to the hour. I don't like doing that. If that works for you, that's awesome. But I like to have a little bit more flexibility. So I love plotting things out on my map because then when I arrive in Japan, let's say, I can see where I'm at. I open up my Google Maps and I say, oh, that restaurant I saved is right around the corner. Maybe I should go there today. Or, okay, I'm 20 minutes away from this historical site. Let me go there today. And it helps me keep the spontaneity while also just making it very easy to see where all of the things I want to see are. So I love doing this no matter where I'm going. Another thing I do, because I mentioned I am a Virgo, which means I am a planner, I use a template on Notion to plan out my rough itinerary for each day. Because there are some trips where, you're traveling from Tokyo to Kyoto, or for me, I'm planning a trip to New Zealand this October, and I will be going from city to city. So I do need to have that rough outline and I want to keep track of everything, where I'm going, where my bookings are. So I use this Notion template and keep track of all of that. And then I'm also going to tell you about a tool that can keep track of all this for you because it can be a lot when you're managing your flight confirmations, your hotel confirmations, all of that. So here's a little bit more about avoiding itinerary overwhelm, the Google Maps thing. I know AI is coming for us all, but it can be helpful in planning an itinerary, especially if you just want to get a rough idea of like the best things to do. I've found that if I use ChatGPT and describe my interests and what I like, it will give me back a couple great ideas that, guess what? Then I'm plotting those on my Google Map. I once searched on ChatGPT for my Japan trip, actually. I said, can you give me a list and itinerary of things to do in Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka for someone who loves anime, loves ramen and sushi, and loves outdoor activities? And it gave me a 5-day itinerary or whatever I told it, including all of those things. So you can get pretty specific, but I also want to support my favorite bloggers. So I still go and look at their stuff too, because they're always better than the AI, but AI can be a good place to start. Then one other thing, or two other things I want to mention is just decide on what your musts are. Like I said, for Japan, I knew I wasn't going to be able to see it all. For New Zealand, when I go, I'm not going to be able to see it all, but I do have a list of the 3 to 5 things that are absolute musts for me and kind of the vibe of the trip I want to go on. So, for example, for New Zealand, I know I want to go to Queenstown, I want to see Milford Sound, and I want to go to Mount Cook and see that beautiful mountain. Those are my 3 musts. And then I can kind of plan everything else around those top 3 things that I want to do. And the vibe of that trip is very outdoorsy. I want to see a lot of nature. So that also helps me determine, okay, if I come back to New Zealand, maybe I'll focus more on the wineries next time, or I'll visit more of the North Island next time. But for this trip, my focus is beautiful nature. And so those are the 3 things. And then, like I said before, stop while you're ahead. Once you do all of this, you don't need to overthink it. You don't need to plan everything out minute by minute. That's not going to be fun, unless that's fun for you, because so I've taken trips like that and sometimes it is fun. But, to avoid the overwhelm, just stop while you're ahead and remember to live in the moment. And I really just love the Google Maps thing for doing that. These are some useful itinerary planning tools that I use for every trip. TripIt is amazing. It will scan your email and pull all of your bookings together and put them in an outlined itinerary for you. So once you book your hotels, once you book your flights, any activities you have booked, it will scan all of that, the confirmation code, everything, and put it in a beautiful itinerary for you. Super helpful if you're open to having your email scanned. I mean, I'm not hiding anything, so I don't really care. And it's just so helpful. They also have a version where it won't scan your email and you can manually put that information in, and they make it very easy to do so. And then I also love Wanderlog because, similar to travel blogs, it is a community-based database of itineraries curated by people. And I often find the itineraries on there are very specific. So there will be itineraries like Tokyo for anime lovers or Europe for history lovers, and it'll have sample itineraries for you to pick and choose what you like. And I've followed itineraries on there to a T and had amazing times. So I wanted to recommend those for itinerary planning tools as well. Okay, after you map out your itinerary, then, and I do this in this order specifically because I want to decide what I want to do first and where I want to go. Then it's time to book accommodation because now I know where I'm going to go and potentially when I'm going to go to those places. And now it's time to book the accommodation. So I'm going to go over some of my top hotel tricks, Airbnb tricks, other, home sharing platform tricks, and some other accommodation options to keep in mind to find the best prices on accommodation. So my main strategy for finding hotels specifically, and that a lot of people will ask, where do I book my hotels from? My favorite thing to do, step 1, is to search best hotels in Dublin on Google. And the reason I do it on Google first is because they take all of the information from all of the other major booking websites and put it all in one spot. They put it on a map so I can easily see. And then I can kind of scroll through, see the ratings, all of that stuff in one space. Then I'll either go to that hotel's website directly to book the room because usually that's the cheapest price, or I love booking.com for another reason I'll touch on in the 4th point here. But one thing I wanted to start with mentioning is that you should join AARP no matter what age you are, because you can get 10 to 15% off all of your major hotel bookings. A lot of the major chains like Hilton, Marriott have discounts for AARP members, and I'm almost 30 and I'm an AARP member, even though I never knew you could do this at any age, but you can, and it's a great way to save a little bit. Also, AAA oftentimes will give you a discount. So if you have AAA insurance, make sure that you get that number and plug that into any major hotel website that you're booking on. Another great way to find cheaper hotel rooms is to check websites called Rumor and Plans Change. These are websites where people will resell their hotel rooms that they can no longer make, but they couldn't cancel. So this also, if you have to cancel a trip and you had a non-refundable policy for your room, list your room on these websites to resell them. But I've found way discounted hotel rooms on these websites before because people are just trying to, you know, get some money back, or they booked it a long time ago and they got a better rate. So I would always recommend checking those. As I said, browsing Google to browse all options at once, but to actually book the room, I would go to the hotel website directly. Or for me, I'm consistently booking through a platform like booking.com, because the more I book, the more discounts I get. So now I'm a Genius member of booking.com. And on almost every single booking I do, I get a 10 to 20% discounted rate because I booked so much with them. They also have a price matching policy. So like they're always going to list the lowest price option as well. And if you find it cheaper somewhere else, they will match that price. So wanted to mention that as well. Now let's get into some home sharing tricks and tips. This is one of my favorite things the internet has taught me in the past year, but always reverse image search, especially if you're looking for homes or places to stay on Airbnb and VRBO. What you do is when you go to the listing of the home that you're thinking about, do a right click, and this little thing will come up where you'll then click on search image with Google, and Google will then populate all of the other places that that exact same property is listed. And many times it'll be listed cheaper on VRBO versus Airbnb, or it might be on some other home sharing platform for a different price. So this is just a good thing to always keep in mind when you are searching for homes. Reverse image search. And I did this for my trip to New Zealand, actually. There was a home on Airbnb. I did the reverse image search, ended up saving $100 a night because it was listed on a New Zealand website for cheaper. So always do that. Another thing I've done, and you know, this goes along with this phrase of closed mouths don't get fed. If you see a listing and it's just a couple $100 out of your price range, you're traveling in off season, you notice that the place is not booked up for a couple weeks before and after you, message the host and ask, hey, can we waive the cleaning fee? Can we remove the cleaning fee a little bit? Is there any way you can discount this rate? Most of the time, hosts are willing to drop that if you just ask. I've only one time had them say no, and it was because it was a very, very popular place to stay. So they probably just didn't need to do that for me. But it doesn't hurt to ask in a respectful way, of course. Yeah, closed mouths don't get fed, so you might as well ask. And then I wanted to mention this one for any content creators or photographers out there. There's a platform called StayAmo where you can stay in places in exchange for taking photography of that place or promoting it if you are a content creator. They have a lot of really cool properties all over the world. And I just wanted to mention that because it could be a good like exchange type of situation. Then these are some other accommodation options I always like to mention. And I always bring up hostels and Hostel World specifically to book them, just because people, I think, still have misconceptions about what a hostel is like. And there are some very nice hostels where you can stay in a private room, not even in a dorm room, for a much cheaper price than a hotel room. And they're nice. I've stayed, especially the ones in Europe, they can be super trendy and clean. And if you want a more social environment, you want to meet people when you're traveling, that's definitely the way to go. And it'll also help you save. And then trusted house sitters, maybe you guys have heard of before, but this is a platform that lets you stay in people's homes for free in exchange for watching their pets. There's a couple of content creators online who do this full time. Like that's where they live. They just go from house to house watching people's pets and have no rent. There is a fee to join the website. I think it's like $150 for the year, but you know, that's probably less than most places are for a night to stay. So if you're interested in that, I always like to mention that one. And then Kindred is a home swapping platform. So if you live in a place that people travel to often, you can list your home and swap with people across the world. So I've done this a few times with in Los Angeles. People visit here all the time. So they'll stay here and I'll stay in Paris. It's just a fun thing like that. holiday movie with Kate Winslet and Cameron Diaz, how they swap homes, if you've seen that movie. This kind of makes that possible in real life. So I wanted to mention that too, because it can be a great way to save. Okay, so now we have our accommodation booked, but how are we getting from point A to point B, especially if you are traveling to various cities, various countries on your trip? How are we getting around? I love this website, Rome to Rio. As you can see here, if you put where you're going to and from, so in this example, I'm traveling from Rome to Naples. How do I get there the most efficient and most affordable way possible? This website shows you each option and how much it's going to cost. And it'll show you the cheapest, it'll show you the best. You can see the time that it'll take for each of the options. So train, rideshare, bus, night train. It'll show a flight if that's a relevant way to travel there too. This website is everything to me. It helps me map out exactly how I'm getting to each place. And it's just the most efficient way to do so. I'm a huge proponent of public transportation when possible, trains, buses, all of that good stuff. Always also going to be the cheapest option. So Rome to Rio will help you get from point A to point B. And then our trip is planned at that point. I mean, we've got everything mapped out. We've got our itinerary, we've got our flights, we've got our accommodation and our transportation all figured out. So then we're just getting ready to go to the airport. So I wanted to put together my personal like checklist of things I do before getting to the airport. And of course, you guys have all heard this before. TSA pre-check clear is a great option if you want to skip the security lines. It never takes me more than 3 minutes to go through security. Even though more people have TSA pre-check now, I have not waited in line for more than 3 minutes in the past 2 or 3 years. I also do have clear, and sometimes I'll go in that line versus TSA pre-check if one looks better than the other. And then also some airlines now are starting this thing called digital ID. Delta has started this recently, so make sure you enroll in that if you're flying with Delta. But essentially, it's the same thing as Clear, but you don't have to pay for it, but it scans your face and then you just go right through security. So be aware of that because that's been really efficient for me recently as well. Then to be comfortable, I always think about what's my best travel outfit? What do I want to wear on the plane? I have my go-to outfit that you wear for pretty much every single flight. It's just black leggings, a black tank top, and a crew neck sweatshirt so that I have layers if the plane is hot or cold, and sneakers. That's what my go-to is. I don't have to think about it. I know it's comfortable every single time. I also think about, this kind of goes back to when you're booking your flight. If you are like me and want to kind of know where you're sitting on the plane, what's the best seat. Seat Guru is a great website to help you figure out which seats have the most leg room because even not all economy seats will have the same leg room. Or if you want to know where the exit row is or all of that kind of stuff, you plug in your plane type on Seat Guru and can browse all of the best seat options. Maybe you could change your seat as you're getting ready to go to the airport. After doing this, I do that a lot. Then I weigh my bags before going to the airport. There's a tool you can get on Amazon where it connects to the top of your bag and you can actually weigh it before getting there. I always travel carry-on only for the most part, and my bags usually don't get weighed in the US. I know in some other countries they will weigh your carry-on bag, but I haven't had that happen to me yet because I always check into my flight before I get to the airport, so I don't have to go up to the gate agent or the check-in counter if I don't want to. And this helps me avoid getting my carry-on bag weighed, I think. Then also, if you want to have more space in that carry-on, I will always wear the bulky items and take it off once I'm on the plane. I use air tags for my luggage tracking to make sure that it gets on the plane. And if it doesn't, at least I know where it is. And then something I've been doing recently, which has worked out for me one time, and this goes back to closed mouths do not get fed. I have been going up to the check-in desk if I'm about to get on a long flight. And I just ask, hey, are there any business or first class seats available? What does it cost for an upgrade? is, if it's a special event like my birthday or something, I'm like, oh, it's my birthday. Like, is there any way I could get an upgrade to business class? I think if you do this in a very respectful way, the worst thing they can say is no, and then you're sitting in the same seat. Best case scenario, you get upgraded. This actually happened to my friend 2 weeks ago. They were flying from New York to Los Angeles on a couple days before their birthday. They went into the check-in desk and asked, hey, it's my birthday in 2 days. Is there any way I can get upgraded? They did not get upgraded when at the gate agent, but when he boarded the plane and sat down, one of the flight attendants came and grabbed him and brought him up to first class, and he got to fly first class back across the country for 6 hours. So can't hurt to ask. And then another thing I always like to say, and one of my friends in the travel industry does this, her name is Charlotte from Chicago. She always writes thank you cards to her flight attendants and pilots. And as she boards the plane, she hands them to them. And I just think this is so cute and special. And, flight attendants and airline staff are dealing with so many people who are stressed out, trying to get to point A to point B. And I think doing something like this is really, really nice. And in Charlotte's case, when she does this, cool things happen to her. She also got brought up to business class one time because of this. So I just think it's a really nice thing to do and can make some of their days, when their days are probably very stressful as well. And I've started doing this. I'll usually give them like a $5 Starbucks gift card or just the handwritten note. It doesn't have to cost you anything. And then I have a packing list. I won't go through this, word for word. You guys can rewatch the taping of this if you want to see this. And then I also have a way at the end for you to check out this whole presentation. And it has links in it, you may have noticed, that you can click on. And then you can have this packing list that I always bring to the airport to make me more comfortable. But the one thing I did want to note is that another thing I do before my trip, and this is once the whole trip is planned, because then I know where I'm going, I know how long, I always get travel insurance, because I do have travel rewards cards that cover some things, but a lot of medical coverage and other things are not covered with your travel rewards cards if you have them. So I always get travel insurance. And before I even did this webinar with SafetyWing, I've been using them for the past 3 or 4 years, especially when I was in my remote work travel days. But they have great options, affordable options for travel insurance, and I just love them. I think their platform's super easy to use too. So if you needed a good travel insurance option, definitely check out SafetyWing. And as Sam mentioned at the beginning, you can also become an ambassador for SafetyWing and refer friends and family and people to use them. So if you want to check that out, I think they're going to drop the link in the chat, but great option for that. Then I wanted to get into some flight anxiety tips. I have struggled with this ever since the pandemic. I somehow developed more flight anxiety than I've ever had, and it's been rough, but these are some of the things that help me. Visualization has been the biggest key thing for me. I actually just took 2 flights to and from Hawaii over the ocean, which normally I would be having a panic attack. And I was so calm because I've gotten so good at visualization. And what I mean by this is whenever I start to get a dark thought on the plane, I replace that thought with, who am I going to see on the ground? Oh, I'm going to see my cats. They are going to snuggle up to me. Oh, I'm going to this really fun wedding. The beach is going to look like this. I'm going to wear this outfit. We're going to eat this food. And I really, it sounds easy, but it's actually quite hard to do. But with the more practice, the easier it does get. Another key thing is just establishing a routine for yourself on the plane. Okay, I'm going to watch this movie. I'm going to read this book, and I'm going to get this work done. When you have a plan going into the flight, you can kind of romanticize it a bit and be like, wow, I'm, totally uninterrupted right now. What do I want to do with my time? And romanticizing that element and establishing that routine is also, I've noticed, been a huge key for me. Some other things I want to mention is if you say hi to the pilots or flight attendants when you're boarding the plane, this always just gives me a sense of reassurance of seeing who's in control. They see me, I see them. It just helps my anxiety. So try to do this if that might help you. And then the SOAR app is a great resource for anyone with flight anxiety, and Dial a Pilot allows you to talk to a pilot and ask them any questions you have. And I've done this a few times. And that has eased so many of my worries because they will tell me the logical reason for this noise, or what turbulence means, or what happens if this happened. You know, they give you that reassurance, and I wanted to mention those resources. And then I wanted to talk about a few things I do when I land in my destination. Now I'm here, the anxiety is gone. And one of the very first things I do, and I highly recommend this to everyone, is take a free walking tour or a food tour, which those usually aren't free. But if they are free, tip your guide. But I do this on the first full day in a place because it's such a great way to establish your surroundings and get local recommendations, because the guides are often people who live there for many years and they can tell you the things you definitely would not have otherwise known. So I always do this on one of the first days because then I feel confident walking around. I know where I'm going and I have a little bit sense of familiarity with the place already. So I love doing that. Then another thing, and I got this tip from my friend Sam, her account is Boozing Abroad. She always plays this game called Bar Roulette, but you could do this in any type of place if you don't drink, a bar, maybe not a bar, a restaurant. But if you ask the bartender or the waiter, what is your favorite local go-to spot? Ask them, go to that spot, and then ask the bartender or waiter there, and just kind of like check out each of the recommendations throughout your trip. And I think that's such a fun way to get the local experience from someone who knows the bar industry, the restaurant industry in town. And I love doing this and just seeing where you end up. And then another thing I want to recommend is just journaling. All of my travel regrets relate back to me not journaling. And so if I just start on day one with a sentence, two sentences, I find that I'm more likely to keep it up the rest of the trip. And now I have journals full of notes from travel, and I think it's the best. So I wanted to note that. Here's a little recap. I won't go through it because I feel like I've talked for a lot already, but this will be in the presentation. You guys can go refer back to this and all the other slides. But step 1 through 5 right here: find your flight, plan your itinerary, book the accommodation, find transportation, and then prep for the airport and the ground. So that is my process. Whenever I see it like this, it makes it feel so much less overwhelming, and I hope that it has done the same for you. And now we can do a Q&A, because I know, I could get so much more into the weeds on all of that stuff, and I would love to answer any questions more specifically. So, whoa, I need some water now.
That was the first thing I was going to ask you. Yeah, take your
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
I must say, that was incredible. You have so many resources, so many apps, so many technologies that you're using for travel hacking. I've spoken
Yeah.
with a lot of travel hackers, and you have a wealth of knowledge. So thank you so much.
Yes, I know it's not a one and done thing. Like, I definitely have all the tools at my disposal, and I think I always am telling people about them. They're like, "Oh, I didn't know about that." So these help me so, so much, and I hope that they help you guys too.
Yeah, there were so many that I had never heard before. I was taking screenshots myself. Multiple people were
Amazing.
messaging saying they were downloading tools as it
Oh,
was
cool.
going. So great job.
I also have this QR code if anyone wants a digital copy of this. You can scan it and actually see the presentation and click on any links and stuff. So check that out. And then also, this will be available on YouTube and you guys can rewatch.
Amazing. Okay, a couple of people had asked about the seat upgrade, which is totally fair because I'm curious about that as well. So specifically, when you get to the gate, do you say like, I'm looking for a free upgrade, or are you just asking for an upgrade and trying to get the quote? Some people are feeling like they're worried that they might get charged if they ask for this.
No, so they'll never charge you unless you specifically agree. So my first approach is always to say, hey, how many business class or first class seats are available right now? They'll check, oh, there's 2 available. And then I'll ask, is there any deal for that upgrade right now? I do this for long haul flights, and sometimes they'll say, yeah, it's going to be $300 or $400 to upgrade to business class. Then I decide, for an 8-hour flight, I might want to spend that. But if that's too much, or it's like $1,000, I'll be like, okay, thanks, no problem. And then I say something like, oh, well, only if this is relevant. I'm not lying. If I say, well, it's just two days is my birthday, or I'm flying on my birthday, or it's my honeymoon, so I just wanted to check, and if they say, okay, no worries, then you just move on. Can't hurt to ask. But like I said, this really worked for my friend the other day because it was 2 days out from his birthday and he got upgraded. So it can't hurt to ask. Also, if you do fly on your birthday, this can happen randomly. I one time was flying on my exact birthday and I didn't say anything to anyone, but I got moved from Delta Comfort up to Delta One because there was just an open seat available and they randomly moved me. I didn't even ask. So fly on your birthday if you want to upgrade. Free upgrade. That one was free. But they won't charge you unless you agree to it. You'll have to like give them your card. Yeah.
No, that's super helpful. That's our script to follow. Okay, thank you. Can you clarify for Margaret what is a travel portal?
Yes. So when you have a travel rewards credit card, let's say Chase, for example, wherever you're logging in to pay your credit card bill or see your statement, that online portal, they have a travel portion, travel portal, where you can go in and see how to use your points from that card to book flights. And they have that all in the Chase website under their travel portal. And I brought that up because you can easily book points or book flights with your points on their website directly, but that's not always the best value for your points. For example, Chase might list a flight for 50,000 points from LA to New York, and that flight is with United. But if you go to United's website, log into your frequent flyer account there, which is free to sign up for, you can see that United has that same flight listed for 40,000 points. So I like to mention that, just because this is in the travel portal with your card, it's not always the best option. So I always mention comparing that to whichever the airline they're listing is to their rewards program on their website. So I hope that makes sense. I have a video on my social media about this because it can be confusing, but they obviously want you to book through their travel portal, but you can get better deals sometimes through the airline.
And it also depends what country you're in terms of
Yes.
what credit cards you get access to. I'm a Canadian and we cannot get the coveted
No.
Chase credit card, which that credit
Yeah.
card is so good. We
Such a
have
pain.
Star Alliance and Aeroplan points, and that's kind of what I'm using for my travel hacking.
Nice. Aeroplan points are great. I just got a really awesome deal using Aeroplan points to fly to Japan. So Aeroplan has some good transfer partners where you can get some good deals.
Okay, amazing. Do you have any hacks for car rentals or any apps or websites you use in that
Oh,
industry?
wait, that's really funny because I'm working on a video right now about this because I just rented a car to drive around Hawaii and I was thinking about this. And so I usually will book my car rental through, for me, I use booking.com because again, the more I use them, the more discounts I get, but there's various websites where you could do that. I typically don't use third-party websites like Priceline or anything because if anything goes wrong, they're not very helpful. So I always go directly to the car rental website. Sixt Car Rentals recently has been really great for me, SIXT. They've had some good prices. One thing I wanted to mention and is going to be in my video about this is when they ask you to purchase car rental insurance, if you have a travel rewards credit card, a lot of the time your card will cover at least a baseline of that rental insurance. So you won't need to buy the full package. It will cover damage done to the car, but not you. So when you go to elect your rental insurance with the car rental agency, you only need to elect the one that's going to cover you and not the car because your card, if you used your card to book the car, will cover that part. So that's a way to save on the actual car insurance part of renting a car. I'll explain that more in my video, but that's a really good tip to keep in mind. And then yeah, there's a lot of websites I use. I typically go to like Avis, Budget, all of those ones because I don't really care what type of car I'm driving. I just try to find the cheapest one and book directly with the car rental. There's also different rewards programs. Like I know Hertz and Hilton or Amex have a program where you can be a gold member and get certain discounts. So a lot of it has to do with any credit card that you have. You could get savings.
Amazing. Okay, perfect. Allison is wondering if you can use credit card points on booking.com.
Not that I've done. I don't think so, but you can also, I didn't mention this, but yeah, you can use credit card points to book hotels through the travel portal that I talked about, but also by transferring your points directly to any of the partners of that card. So I often transfer my Chase or my Amex points to either Marriott or Hilton and book hotels with my points that way. I've never done it through booking.com. I wonder, I don't know. I'm going to check that out if that's a thing, but I typically do it directly with the hotels as well.
Okay, perfect. That's a great tip. I think we've got time for one or two more. So Jade is wondering, have you ever had an issue that when you get to a destination, there were no accommodations or like trains available, but you've already booked the flight or already heading there?
Hmm. No, I've never really had this. I've never had this happen. I had my car break down once, and that was fun, but I'm trying to think. So usually, like let's say I land in a destination, everything's planned out, and here's the thing. If your hotel is not there or it was an Airbnb and they canceled on you last minute, guess what covers that? Travel insurance. So that's another reason to have good travel insurance is because when those things happen, they will reimburse you and make sure you have the funds to figure that scenario out. And when my car did break down and I needed to hire a tow truck to come get me and all this stuff, travel insurance covered those expenses because that was the fault of the rental insurance company, not me. So when anything goes awry like that, that's why travel insurance is amazing to have. That lost luggage, all that kind of stuff, stolen items. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Raimee. I know we all learned a ton. As you can see there, she's got her QR code. If you want to dive into these links right away, you can literally start doing it now. But it'll also be up on our YouTube channel. We've recorded this, and you can check out all the other webinars we've done in the past. We will relink the ambassador program. That was a great reminder of the importance of insurance. And if you are creating content where it would make sense for you to recommend SafetyWing, we'd love for you to join our community. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you guys. And thank you for listening to me ramble for like an hour. That was so
not,
fun.
not rambling. You did great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.